We're working with the business or marketing plan for the You Got It training company that can be found in the Chapter 5 Project Files folder. It is a significant document. Now, it's not too long, but it's certainly more than a page or two. So using formatting is important. We have what should be sections, and each section has been divided into subsections, each with headings. We also have the main body text, and eventually we're going to have footers and captions for tables and images and more. In a document like this, it would be very difficult to remember every possible formatting feature for each of these types of textual content. We know we can move through the document, select specific text, and apply formatting to it. But I think we can already see how laborious that's going to be when we have larger, complicated documents. We'd have to remember all the little intricacies of the formatting, we'd have to apply it over and over, and we'd have to be sure not to miss anything. Now, let's imagine that we not only have this document, but we also want to manage a collection of, let's say, 20 other documents that are supposed to have similar formatting. Now we'd have to expand that to include all of those documents as well. Okay, now you might be saying, bad enough, right? Well, let's take it just one step further. What if it wasn't just ourselves who was working on these documents, but maybe us and a team of 3 or 4 others? Now we have to be sure everyone is doing everything the same way, and that, my friends, is exactly why we need to be using styles. And this document is a perfect example. If we approach styles correctly, though, it's not going to be that difficult. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning. As we said, just like every document is based on a template, all text is based on a style. The default template is the normal dot. The default style is also called normal. The normal style is one that Word has as a built-in style, and we can see it if we start looking at this document. Now, as we start to scroll down, it certainly looks like some of this text has been formatted, and indeed, maybe it has. But if we select the text, we can see in the gallery at the top of the page, in the Styles group on the Home tab, the normal style is highlighted. So even though this may be the normal style, we could have applied some hard coding or some formatting to it. In this case, it's bold, and we can see that on the ribbon as well. If we select You Got It Training Company, we can see that this also uses the normal style, but in this case it includes bold and italics as well. So a style is kind of a base, and remember that we can do hard coding or manual formatting on top of it. That means that you can't just look at a document and tell what style has been applied. You need to have some other tools to be able to determine this, and we're going to be talking about these throughout the rest of this chapter. Let's go ahead and scroll down, and I'm just going to use the scroll wheel on my mouse to scroll down about to page 3 or so. Go past the table of contents to where we can see the text that says Executive Summary. If we were to select this, and I'm just going to use some keyboard shortcuts, primarily Control-B and Control-I, we can apply some manual formatting. Why am I bothering to do this when we kind of already did it in a prior chapter? Well, we need to talk about hard coding. Because unlike text formatted using styles, if we hard code it, it won't and actually can't change now by doing things like changing the theme fonts or trying to apply a style to it, unless we physically remove the hard coding. So we need to learn how to do that. In the hierarchy, the theme comes first. Styles take precedence over themes, but hard coding overrides everything else. So if up to this point you formatted things with hard coding, which most of us will until we know better, we want to remove all of that. As we've said, we can't actually change or remove all of the formatting. All we can do is change it. All text has some formatting applied to it, and all text has some type of a style. But we can return it to the normal style without all of the extra stuff. We can do that a couple of different ways using a clear formatting command. Let me show you 2 different ways to get to that from the ribbon, and then we'll talk about the shortcut. The first way is right from the Home tab. At the right side of the font group, there's this little eraser-looking button, and if you pause over it, it actually says Clear Formatting. Another way is to expand the actual styles gallery. Click the down arrow, and all the way at the bottom, before the little thumbnails that we can see, we have an option that says Clear Formatting here as well. I'm going to go ahead and press my Escape key a couple of times to get out of that, and now for the keyboard shortcut. The keyboard shortcut, which is not very well documented, is actually Control Spacebar. And I think sometimes that's hard to remember. So maybe one thing that can maybe help you is to think of the space bar as making nothing. When you press the space bar, it types something, but it looks like nothing. So Control Space Bar puts us back to nothing as far as the styles. Okay, maybe that's a stretch, but it works. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to press Control Space Bar on my keyboard. And you will see that Executive Summary now goes back to the normal style, which we can see in the gallery, but the bold and the italics have both been removed. There are often some little kinds of things in the background, little technical details in the ways that we use computers that make a difference sometimes. So let me tell you, the keyboard shortcut formally is supposed to only remove character formatting. If you look closely at the tooltip for the ribbon or gallery options, you'll see they actually say that they clear all formatting. This may be insignificant. It kind of depends on what you're doing, but other times it may be very significant. For example, the first two methods may remove things like page or column breaks, whereas the keyboard shortcut will not. Just be vigilant as you work to be sure any of these methods is doing what you expect it to. If another style had actually been applied and we wanted to put it back to the normal style, then we can use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-N, and that might be a little bit easier to remember, N being for normal. All of these techniques are going to be really useful when we're using text created by someone else and we don't know exactly what they did, especially if it's being used from another program like WordPerfect or even copied from a website. It gets rid of all of that formatting and the codes, both visible and hidden, that sometimes will just drive us crazy trying to figure out why it is or isn't working the way that we want. If for some reason we didn't want that, don't forget we always have undo. We shouldn't have any fear about removing or experimenting with this kind of stuff because we always can do the undo command. It's available from the QAT, or we can use Control-Z on the keyboard. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and press Control-Z on the keyboard. Gets our bold and italics back in one step instead of having to redo it. And now we're going to talk about one other tool that a lot of people know about, but surprisingly to me, enough people don't that I wanted to make sure we mentioned it. It's the little paintbrush that we find in the clipboard group. This little paintbrush is called the Format Painter, and it has been around for really forever, at least the last couple of versions in Office, but I find that a lot of people aren't aware of it. The Format Painter is just like copy and paste, except instead of copying and pasting data, it copies and pastes the formatting. If we click on it one time, it loads the cursor, and you'll notice that if we then scroll down in the document, and we're going to go down actually to where we can see Business Concept, we'll see this loaded cursor, looks kind of like a little paintbrush, and we can click and drag to apply that formatting here. Now some important things happened. We need to scroll down just a little bit because our original text not only was bold and italics, it also had a page break before it. So this bumped it down to page 4. Don't be surprised when you see that. Remember, I talked about these things containing both hidden and visible things. In this case, that page break was something that we may not have known was there, but the Format Painter certainly picked it up as part of the paragraph format. If you want to apply what you're copying using the Formatting Painter more than one time, because you'll notice now it's back to just being unselected, we can go ahead and double click. When you double click, like I just did, it actually locks it on so we can apply it multiple times. In this case, I can click on Business Goals and Objectives. And again, we have to scroll down to find our content because that page break is still there. And then I could also do the next heading. In this case, we have to go all the way down where we can find General Description of Business, give that a click, and of course we're seeing the same formatting being applied multiple times. When you double click the Format Painter, simply go back and give it a single click to disable it or to turn it off. So these are the basics, and actually a lot of it didn't have to do with styles, but what we now know is how to remove any manual formatting that we've applied, and also how to use the Format Painter, which is kind of a bridge between manual formatting and actually using styles themselves. When we remove the formatting, most importantly, remember that it gives us a clean slate on which we can begin properly applying formatting using styles, which is what we'll get to next.